Welcome to Main Street Mavericks, celebrating conversations with exceptional Main Street businesses who serve friends and neighbors in your community. Here's your host, Joel Helfer.
Good afternoon. This is Joel Helfer, Main Street Mavericks Radio, and welcome to another episode. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Timothy R. Johnson. Timothy is from the greater Chicago area. He is an investor specializing in selling, rehabilitating, and renting real estate. He's the former owner of Noah Construction, currently the owner of Bradley Management and Global Renegade. Tim is the author of 5 books and currently works as the business development manager for Clint Arthur's Status Factory. He's a graduate of the Status Factory and has 18 national and local TV appearances to his credit. The Status Factory programs are designed to give its graduates higher status than their competition, and Tim enrolls ideal clients in these programs as well as creates joint ventures and strategic alliances for the Status Factory. Tim, welcome to the show.
Yes. How you doing?
I'm doing great today. Thank you very much for joining us. I know our audience is anxious to hear about status and how you help people achieve status. Tell me a little bit about that. What do you do?
Well, obviously, we understand that. Obviously, if you look at people like Ben Affleck and Angelina Jolie, and you look at all of the people that became famous, it was generally done through media. So whether that was talk shows, being on TV, being in a movie, we understand that people always want to be like the movie stars, right? I mean, that's why, you see lip sync battle and you see all these people do crazy, crazy stuff on media, and it's just drawing attention to your audience so that people understand and know and trust you. So obviously, when people see something on TV, they think it is an authority figure, right? So what we try to do is elevate their brand through the sources of media, radio, TV. We do an event at West Point. We just got done doing that. We just did one at Harvard Business Faculty Center there at Harvard University. So really just taking some of that media, putting it in magazines, putting it on TV, really just kind of elevates your status. What I think that does is when people come into your office and see, hey, you wrote a book and it's from Harvard, or, you've seen something that, and all of a sudden they see that you were on TV. I think it just, people get excited, when you're doing business with something like that. I think the buyer restriction drops way down because of that. Does that make sense?
Oh, makes a lot of sense. I know a lot of people get a little bit nervous about being in such high-profile places like West Point and Harvard. How do you prepare them and get them ready so they do a good job and present themselves in the best possible way?
I think a lot of it is your message. See, we always want to tell people what we want them to know, but not what we don't want them to know. And I think through stories, I think when we tell people our story, the one that we don't want people to hear, I think our customers identify with us better. Because we always want to go on TV. People don't always want to know what to do. They want to know like the 5 pitfalls not to do so they can become successful, right? And success I think is a mindset. I think a lot of times we've been told, we always wanted it better for our kids, but we forgot to teach our kids how to fish, not give them a fish. And I think through media, whether that's NBC, Clint is literally booked over 3,500 different TV segments in the 30 different celebrity launch pads that we've done. We've been able to create some major success. So, I was in Clint's very second class that ever came out. I was his very first titanium customer, right down to the point that, him and I have been together kind of through some strategic things that we've done together. I was there when he won Infomarketer of the Year. I was there at the event at GKIC when he created the all-time sales record for it. And I think just elevating your status is really the 5 people that you hang around with most. I mean, if you see the paparazzi, celebrities hang around celebrities. And I think when you up that brand of who you hang out with, and the people that you do business with, I think elevating that status, more people are going to want to know you because you're elevating your status. Does that make sense?
Oh, makes a lot of sense to me. I know you talked about misconceptions and pitfalls that people have. What are some of the pitfalls that people have to worry about when they're trying to elevate their status?
Well, I think sometimes it's your self-worth. I think it's a mindset thing. They're like, oh, why would I ever want to be on TV? Remember, you're not the one. They say when America's leading most doctor right here is on here to tell you what it is. That's not you saying it. It's them saying it. Make sense? Uh-huh. And I think a lot of people over time have forgot that it's okay to be a celebrity. You know what I mean? You have a message. They say, well, I don't have nothing to say. I think everybody has a story inside of themselves. And sometimes we're just afraid to share that. I think, I've shared my message. I grew up rough and a lot of different avenues and different stuff. I think that was a message that was given to me by God to really help change the world. I have a friend, Peter Anthony, out of Vegas that has a platform called You Will Change the World. Mm-hmm. I think it's the message that we go out and we give to the world that really identifies who we are and what makes us different. There's no two stories that are exactly the same. Look at Tony Robbins. I mean, a guy that just came out, he's motivated billions and billions of people to changing their lives because he created a pathway to do that. He's been on TV, he's been on Netflix, he's been on all these different places. And I think the more that you get your message out there and the more vulnerable you are about giving that message out with authenticity, I think the more that people are going to show up and want to do business with you because they're in the same place.
Oh, there's no question. I totally agree with that. I understand you're an author of 5 books. Congratulations. That must have taken a lot of effort to write 5 books. What's one of your favorite books that people should go to Amazon or the bookstore to pick up?
I just wrote a new one called Living a Wholesale Life in a Retail World. I think it's about dropping your ego. It's a lot of the money-saving tips that I do in the real estate. Obviously, I was nicknamed the King of Cheap by a lot of my friends. The only thing, I just did a lot of due diligence on what programs to use, what programs not to use, so that people could elevate what they're doing. So why waste your money? Do a little bit of homework. That's how, obviously, I got the nickname the King of Cheap. So getting on there and just doing a lot of the segments was, the word cheap is really a negative word, but I think people, back in the Great Depression, we were more about saving our money. We were more about paying stuff with cash. I think with the credit and everything that people are doing nowadays, I think we've got to the point where, we're not in that space anymore. You know what I mean? We forgot how to save money. And I think with, just going out, hey, you want a new car, elevating your credit score up a little bit will help you, save you a lot of money over time. I think we just forgot to do diligence process. We always wanted it better for our kids. We kind of wanted to hand it to them, but we forgot how to work for it. Does that make sense?
Oh, it totally
and I think
makes
that's,
sense.
And as well as I do, when you work for something, you take care of it a lot better. Does that make sense?
Makes tremendous sense. I know a little off the subject, but it seems like the current generation today, the kids want everything faster and not putting in the same effort that we used to do.
Oh, of course. Right. We just wanted to hand it to us. You know what I mean? And I think when things are handed to us, we don't take it into a different place. You know what I mean?
No, I totally agree with you. And that's one of the things that interests me, getting back to the Status Factory, is that how do you select an ideal client? What's an ideal client that you like to work with to help them build their attention and their sphere of celebrity?
I think it's positioning. I think it's make a difference and a fortune at the same time. Sharing your message. There's no ideal or unideal client. I think it's someone that is ready to go out and share their message in an authentic way that really has something to say. You know what I'm saying? Like, for example, you say, why do you want to do this? I want to make more money. Right. If that's your only mission in life is to make more money, then you don't have any why. And I think when somebody has why, a doctor wants to change the world because, he sees kids are having trouble with nutrition, or maybe it's a doctor that, he says all these supplements. We have one of our students is, sells supplements, and he says all the supplements, a lot of these supplements are there, have a lot of byproducts in them that aren't all natural. But I think it's about changing the charisma about being on TV. I wear a Burger King hat. I give everybody I give everybody at the studio a Burger King hat. I think it's about the charisma and about having the fun that you want to have. You know what I mean? And when you show up like that, TV is all about entertainment. I mean, look at Donald Trump. Clint wrote a couple books about Donald Trump. Donald Trump's one of the biggest actors there is. I mean, he's just about having fun. He creates media. He creates drama. He just has a lot of fun with it. And when you can smile and have fun, speak louder, and do the stuff you want to do, I think people just want to get to know you more. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I totally agree with you. Tell me, when you've worked for Clint, Arthur, at the Status Factory, what's one of the biggest successes you've had since you've been there that's helped further your
I
career?
think one of our clients, he did when we spoke at Harvard Business Faculty Club, he went up there, he had a 5-minute pitch. He gave it to his some of his sales guys, and they actually went out, which was really cool, and went out there, showed a video. Guy had I love Harvard bumper sticker. So what he did was go out, and the guy closed an $83,000 construction contract just based on that video because he elevated his status. Because they got to see something where they connected. Makes sense. He loved Harvard. One of our guys had spoke at Harvard, and the sales guy went out, showed out, and it closed him an $83,000 contract. Makes sense.
That's pretty good. That was a good return on investment, I think.
That's definitely a good return on investment. And I think when you elevate your status and you do a lot of the different things that you do, I don't think it's just about status. I think if you elevate, I think once you raise your status, if you hang it around a different type of person, I think you start to see some of the differences that are in there. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. And what are some of the qualities of these people that you like to hang out with? What would you say some of them are for the listeners that they should think about?
I think they're ready. They're somewhere in their life that either are trying to change the world one message at a time, or I think a lot of it is just that they're there to serve. They're not there to take, but they're there to serve and make things a lot easier. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. I was talking to you. I understand you just came back from a nice cruise, the Marketer's Cruise. Tell me a little bit about that experience and how that helped further your business.
Well, obviously I won the Heart of Gold Award. I had sold 23 of the cabins on the boat and brought a lot of business owners and a lot of different people to the cruise because I think, we're always good at one thing. The problem is we don't surround ourselves with the people that are expert in other things. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
And I think once you do that, I think it takes it to another point. It's almost like your board of directors. Fortune 500 companies have a board of directors that I think specialize in one specific area and that are really good at it. And I think when you do that, I think it's to the point where you start to see that when you start to align yourself with people that are experts in their field, kind of like we do it at some of our events, I think there's a lot of business that can be done cross-pollinating because, Ford doesn't do it by themselves. We just had an event where Buzz Aldrin was with it. We were talking about going to space. Well, obviously, Buzz Aldrin is the one that's known for it, but obviously NASA and the team is the one that put them on the moon. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense.
And when you go out, I think when you hang around that caliber of people, I don't think you can do nothing but grow your business. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes total sense. And didn't he speak at one of the meetings that you ran?
When we were at Harvard, when we were at West Point, he was one of the main speakers that came.
That must have been a real experience, actually participating in a seminar at West Point. Did you?
It was great. It was definitely an event that was good. I got to meet General Honoré. He was one of the people that was a main person that was there. He was the one that evacuated Katrina during that time. It was just that good. Does that make sense? He was just an influence of somebody that's had 85 years of experience. I got to take pictures with him. That's one of the great things about elevating your status. I think, like when you go around my office, you can see pictures of, I have all different kinds of pictures of different people that I've met because of raising my status. So when people like investors and people come into my office as a brick and mortar business, I think when they see those pictures, especially when they identify with someone they really wanted to know and I've been able to meet, I think it is the buyer restriction that your customer has coming in the door is just so much better. The conversation piece doesn't talk like they're not just coming in to do business. They want you to tell the stories. Hey, how did you meet Gene Simmons? How did you meet Dave Hester from Storage Wars? How did you, meet Buzz Aldrin? How did you meet, all these amazing people that I've been able to meet? And I think that's just from doing business differently. I think it's going out with a serving attitude. And when you're there to serve your client and they can see the kind of caliber of people that you hang around, and like we say, celebrities hang around with celebrities.
Right.
You don't see Warren Buffett, hanging out with, some, regular people. He hangs out. You see him at the gala events. You see him around different kinds of people because that's who he surrounds himself with.
And that's part of what you teach at the Status Factory is getting people to hang out with people that are, what would say, equal or a little higher caliber than themselves. Is that correct?
I shared that thing with you before. Did you see this? I started the stupid movement. I want to be the stupidest guy in the room. Do you remember I was sharing that with you?
I do.
It's smart, unique, person in demand. I want to be in demand for my clients. I want people chasing me, not me having to chase clients, right? And I think when you're the stupidest guy in the room and you can drop your ego, that's why we wrote the book, Living a Wholesale Life in a Retail World, I think was a lot based on just elevating that status to the point that, hey, you know what? Somebody is probably a little smarter than you. And you are the 5 people that you hang around with most. I think when you can hang around the caliber of people and be the stupid person in the room and be in demand, I think you're going to notice that customers show up different, your friends show up different. And I think really in business, I think everything shows up different. I mean, even your office staff, different people. And I think if you take them along for the ride, I think you're going to find that, people just show up different for you.
What motivated you to get started in this quest for helping people raise their level of status? How'd you start?
I think we feel entitled, and obviously Clint and I've been friends for a long time. And Clint called me one day. He was just having a little bit of trouble finding someone to do some business development. I'd done a lot of brick and mortar businesses, and he called me up one day and he said, "Listen, this is kind of my mission. Our mission was to really just change the status of a lot of business owners." By getting them, I've spoken in Nigeria, I've spoken in the Dominican Republic, I've even been on TV in Nigeria, because of my status and been able to speak all over the world. I think when you do that, it was just the idea that you could be something different in life as long as, we are in the land of opportunity, but how do you, for example, Mark Zuckerberg, I mean, look at that guy. I mean, he was just a regular college kid that grew into a $3.5 billion business. I think with the right purpose and the right people around you, I think you can accomplish anything. And I think that just kind of drove me to elevate my status because I didn't want to, I've watched people my whole life. I've watched, I've been in foster homes. I've watched, when, abuse. I've watched, my own personal life, where my dad was in prison and different stuff like that. I think I just wanted something different out of life than just being. I wanted to be exceptional, And I think when you go out, like we talked about on the phone the other day, is how can I assist you? I think when you go out in the world and how can you assist, I think it comes back 100-fold. I just do. And seeing, like Warren Buffett, he gave half his money away. And because he gave half his money away to help people, I mean, his company's growing even more. You know what I'm saying? I don't think you can ever outgive God, right? You do things time and time again. I think it comes to a point that you start to you start to understand that status is just a huge thing. And it's not an ego-driven thing. I think it's a mission that you go out in life is when you do want to elevate your status. And I always ask my clients, are your kids worth you being successful? Are you beautiful? Are you sexy? Do you feel like you're somebody? And I think with TV and adding a lot of that stuff, I think it gives your office and your workplace something to stand behind, not just being there. Make sense?
It does. And do you have any suggestions on how people can get started to improve their position, their status in their particular industry or field?
Obviously they can email me. You know what I mean? I could always have, I have a calendar link on, that I can give you. If somebody wants to talk about elevating their status, more than willing, I'm always available by phone to go over stuff with people. Because I think sometimes, people will tell you, well, I'm an orthodontist and I do this and I do that. Well, I don't think orthodontists do that. I think what orthodontists do is they bring back confidence in you. Your teeth look good. If you need braces, it comes in. It's about having that pretty smile. I think when you smile more and you raise that status, I think it's about, why did they become that orthodontist? Why did they become that real estate investor? Was it to spend more time with their kids? Was it to give a better lifestyle for their grandkids? Was it to just get one extra trip this year? I think when you start to dial in what the why is, I think people accomplish their goals more. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense.
And I think people need to sit down. What is your mission statement? Why do you do what you do? And I think when you add that and you dial your message in, because really, with YouTube and Facebook and social media, we really have less than 10 seconds to get somebody's attention as to why you're different than the 400,000 other people that are doing the same thing you're doing. And I wanted to be different. I wanted to be different. I wanted to do different. I wanted to show my kids that there was something better in life than just being.
I'm looking at one of the articles that you wrote in a magazine here, where they label you the king of cheap. Where did that nickname come from?
Well, I just, for example, a lot of people, I did due diligence. So I went to every supply house in the major area. I didn't want to spend, so I took it back to Lowe's. And a lot of my guys are like, man, how do you always get stuff cheaper than anybody? I said I did my due diligence. I started to make relationships with supply houses that would give me discounts that were better than what I would get at Lowe's. Then I would go to Lowe's. Then I would send it to Menards, at Home Depot, and I would always try to get the best price, to the point, it was all about the materials and using the right stuff. But at the same time, if you just take a little bit of time, just like with your status, just like about anything you do in life, if you do a little bit of due diligence in life, who your friends are, who you hang out with, what you do, what you spend money on. And it just became one of those things Clint gave me a long time ago. He's like, Timmy, you're the king of cheap, bro. Like, no one saves more money than you. And I research that stuff a lot. You know what I mean? Like right now, I'm in the process of negotiating a deal from the same place that Priceline buys a lot of their stuff from. I wanted to buy my travel cheaper. Again, I love to travel. I like to do stuff. So I just make connections with people that have stuff, but they don't know how to market it. They don't know how to be the face of it. They don't know how to make money with it. It's the craziest thing how some people make money with stuff. Look at you. You were in the construction trade. You're like, hey, man, this was great. Obviously you've seen some writing on the wall. You got out when it was really good. And you're like, you know what? I just want to help elevate people's status. You know what I mean? Through digital or authority marketing or doing whatever. And you just created like what I call your second 50, right? You created a unique business. But, I remember you were talking about it the other day. You're like, listen, I used to just leave candy. Just that little extra service that you gave to somebody was everything, right? People are like, where's my candy?
Right.
They became so ingrained with it that, a 50-cent box of candy probably got you more business because you paid a little attention.
Well, what it was all about was not trying to make business clients, but to make friends. And I'm a little different. I don't have friends. I either have acquaintances or I have brothers, because I wanted it to be more family. You know what I mean? Right.
I wanted them to feel like they were my family, not just a friend. I want, obviously some people have customers. I say we have clients, because I want those people to be in my family for the rest of my life. I want to do business. I want to help elevate their business at the same time at elevating ours. And I think with what we do, and even like what you said, I think we forgot how to court people. Obviously nowadays with the society, we're so email driven. We're so we forgot to connect with our clients in a way they want to call up and say, hey man, happy birthday, brother. You know what I mean? Is everything going well, man? Is everything good? And I think when you create that ambience, almost like you did in the construction trade, just with a box of candy, or just, you said you had that group that came together so everybody could kind of trade secrets and just do business. But you didn't do it from a selfish point. You did it like, hey man, even one of the guys that that you talked about the other day was like, hey man, I love this group you create. I got to get dinner. So what you created was a family environment, but now even your competition, they now wanted to pay for lunch because you created something that was better than anybody else. And I think people want to belong to something.
They do, and I just did something this morning, which I normally don't do, is that I was working with a client, and we quoted him a price, and he said, I can't afford that. So I said to him, all right, let's turn the table around 360 degrees. How much can he afford, right? So he said, well, I can afford this. So I tailored a program to meet his needs at a price that he could afford. And guess what happened? He got the order.
He bought.
So it shows if you look at it from the other person's point of view, you can always be a winner. Sometimes, and like they say, half a loaf is better than nothing. And I think people have forgotten that today because
but what you did here's what you created, because you're able to work in his budget, and if he makes money from it, he's going to come back and be a lifetime client, not just a one-off. It's not the wham bam thank you ma'am that most people do nowadays. You're harvesting a family member that will probably spend money for the rest of his life. And that's really what elevating your status is, because you care more about tailoring something to him than just trying to take his money. And
that, I think, is a key point in not only status but in business in general, is that that's something it's like the old-time street smarts. It's kind of been lost today.
Hey, I never went to college, brother, but I do have a PhD in common sense.
That's more important than going to college, and
of course.
That's what you call the college of hard knocks.
Or the easy knocks. I think people spend all this money. I didn't have to get a $200,000 education to realize that you could just, if you elevated your status and hung around a different type of people, not the people that wanted, I'm not saying welfare is bad, but some people just feel entitled, like, listen, why will I go work for it if the government's going to give it to me?
No, you're 100% right. What's a big takeaway? What's one key point that you would like the listeners to remember about status that they could take with them and implement in their lives to make them better?
What a lot of Clint's clients and my friends tell me is I take what's between their brain and I put it in the bank. And a lot of people ask me, how do you do that? Because I think it's a story that they're not telling that's going to connect them to their clients. Does that make sense? Because we all, like, when you and I were like, hey, hey, Timmy, what do you do? And I started telling you, like, man, can I learn from you? And I'm like, absolutely. I'd love to. Right? Then we come to find out that we had a lot of construction background. Okay. Well, one of the things, listen, I still have a construction business, and there's probably, that one little thing about sending out candy or doing something. I forgot to do that. So I think it's when you go out with a serving attitude, I think what people need to realize is, like, listen, don't worry about what's in it for you right now. If you go out and you're like, hey, what can I do to help? And we had our conversation on the phone, which hence now I'm on an interview with you. I think it's when you connect like that. I think you create, like you said, I think when people, you got to start building relationships.
Right.
Businesses don't grow, people do.
Well,
my office manager, her whole thing when she came to me, she's like, listen, I want to start my own business. She wants to be a business owner. So I started training her. You know what I mean? It's not one of those things, but when you start to train somebody in a different mindset, she's got 6 kids and now she's got another one on the way. She has to be able to, at one time, she's going to need to be able to sit at the office. So I don't let her go out and check on jobs anymore. She's now being the business owner. She's leveraging her time with other people's time. And I think that's when you can leverage other people's time, like, I may come across something in the construction. Hey, bro, Joe, I need a favor, man. I've run into this. What in the world did you do with this? Right. Oh, Timmy, just call this person. I think we create our board of directors through relationships.
Well, I used to do it through my competition. They became my friends.
Yeah, but that competition probably had a few jobs at one time. You're like, listen, you specialize in this part. You specialize in this part. And you probably referred back and forth. I don't really like to do that, but that's what this guy really likes to do.
Right.
And that's what I did in the investing arena. A lot of investors come to me, they're like, Timmy, what can you get shingles for? I'm like, I get them for $65. They're like, I'm paying $85. I'm like, I'll just buy under my name. So I created my own Sam's Club.
Oh, and it's wonderful when you do those type of favors for people because they never forget them.
Right.
Let me ask you, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you and talk about status or real estate investing or any of the other really neat things that you do, how do they go about getting a hold of you, Tim?
Well, they can call my cell phone. I mean, the easiest way is best thing is usually text me, but they can text me at 630-981-7245. Again, the number is 630-981-7245. Or if they want, they can text the word money, MONEY. Let me pull up the number real quick on my phone, and I'll tell you what that number is.
Okay.
to 574-203-9605.
Repeat that one more time.
The word money to 574-203-9605. What that'll make an introduction to, because I love helping people make more money. I mean, that's why I became the business development manager at Status Factory, was really just once they elevate their status, what do they do with it? How do they get it out there? You know, and a lot of that is like using people like yourself, Nina, Clint. I put a board of directors together. Depending on what hole in their business they were missing, I tried to connect them with people that were the experts. Now, listen, I'm really good at elevating their status and you know, helping them make more money. Sometimes they need systems. Sometimes they just need more media. Sometimes they need a radio show like this, or they need a book, or they need something that's different to help elevate their status so that when they do connect with their clients, you know, they're known as an expert in their field.
And they get the third-party endorsement from either the book, the radio show, the speaking engagement, the audience, whatever, so other people are talking about all their fine qualities and not themselves. Well, this has been a wonderful interview. I've enjoyed having you on the show, Tim. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for giving me your insights into status. And we wish you well and good luck in your future businesses.
I appreciate that, brother, and you as well.
Thank you very much. This has been Tim Johnson from the Status Factory. And I always end the show by saying, have a little fun every day. Don't save it up.
You've been listening to Main Street Mavericks Radio with Joel Helfer. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit mainstreetmavericks.com.